What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. We are continuing our trend of banger builds for y'all this season with another Solar 3.0 for our Warlock here. I know you've probably seen some variations of it, but we just got these exotic boots to drop. The Rain of Fire exotic legs from this season for our Warlock, which gives us some nice in-air accuracy, as well as using that Icarus Dash to reload all of our weapons. So this build right here is kind of crazy for fusion rifles, and we have a couple different variations for weapons for y'all to use. So to start out, we're going to be using our good old Daybreak once again with our Healing Rift and Balance Glide. This time for our melee, we're going to be using Celestial Fire for that little extra oomph on damage, and I just like how this plays a little bit better with this build compared to our other one. Once again, we're going to be using solar grenades. I just think that they are the best for clearing out areas with that extra little lava blobs that we're going to get from our aspect over there, and spreading that scorch around this thing is definitely the key and king for solar grenades in my personal opinion on Warlock, besides using those fusions and that chest piece Starfire protocol. Now for our aspects here, we're going to be using Icarus Dash, which is super important for those exotic boots, so we can dodge well airborne, and having this with those exotic boots, the Rain of Fire, reload every single one of our weapons, which is super nice for doing some damage and even add clearing with the loadout we're going to be using. Our second aspect here is Touch of Flame, so we get some enhanced functions on our grenades, specifically our solar grenades, so they last longer and they periodically, like I said, emit those bloops of lava, which are good for that extra little bit of damage and AoE effect for spreading scorch and clearing ads. Moving on to the fragments that we will be using right here for the build. First off, we're going to be using Ember of Empyrean, so solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of radiant and restoration applied to you. So this is super nice because we're going to be applying that radiant via our weapons, our fusion rifles and linear fusion rifles, as well as restoration with classy restoration, throwing down our rifts with this build and keeping it extended. You are basically invincible in this build, and you can reload about every 3-4 seconds with our Icarus Dash. Moving on, we're going to have Ember of Benevolence, so applying that Restoration, Cure, or Radiant, for us going to be Radiant and Restoration to those allies. We are able to get increased grenade, melee, and class ability regeneration for a short period of time, so that is nice for getting our abilities back just a little bit faster, so we can spam those grenades, melees, and our rift to stay alive. Next, for our third one, we're going to have Defeating Scorched Targets grant us melee energy, so we're going to be able to use that Celestial Fire a little bit more than normal via this mod right here, because that Scorch is going to be spreading very easily with this build. And finally, Ember of Wonder, more for that plus 10 resilience, because we were lacking a little bit at 72, but having those solar ignitions with our super and our grenades are going to help us create orbs of power, so we can in turn get that super back a little bit faster. Now moving on to the weapons, I have two different variations of how I've been playing with this build. First off, I have the Riptide, which is the fusion rifle kinetic stasis from the Crucible this season with Feeding Frenzy and Frenzy on it, so it's doing a little bit of extra damage with that Feeding Frenzy being able to reload. So this is a pretty good fusion rifle for that kinetic slot. Definitely seen this with the build Vex Mythoclast because it's solar, so every defeat we get is continuing that radiant and restoration via that Ember of Empyrean, and this thing is very, very good inside of PvE in general and just pairs perfectly with how we're building this build out for solar elemental wells as well. And then I'm bringing in my crafted Cataclysmic right here, linear fusion rifle, because it applies to our exotic boots as well. And then with that adaptive mutations, and then also 4 times the charm, it is very good at breaking shields and doing good DPS on bosses and champions, whatever you're taking this build into. Now, another variation of the build that I have been using is Outbreak Perfected, because this thing is absolutely cracked with those nanites and spreading around AoE damage and just clearing out ads in general. And then this right here with our Cartesian coordinate, very, very good fusion rifle for dealing that extra damage via Vorpal, and with its solar burn on both this and Cataclysmic, we're going to be getting that Ember of Empyrean to proc and continue our restoration and radiant via these right here, which is super nice to get those to continue to go. These are a little bit harder based on ammo economy, but this is also still a very, very fun and good build with this. But my main is definitely using Riptide and Vex with my Cataclysmic. Now for the armor and the mods that we are pairing with this, we're going to go with our Linear Fusion and Fusion Rifle Finder, because those will apply to both our Riptide and then our Cataclysmic Heavy. And then on top of that, we're going Elemental Armaments, so every single weapon defeat that we have that matches our Solar, so with our Vex and our Cataclysmic, or if we're using our other fusion rifle over here in Cartesian coordinate, this is going to have a chance to drop us Solar Elemental Wells, which we will be picking those up to grant us a nice little bit of health via Well of Life, as well as they just intrinsically refill whatever lowest ability we have is. Next, right here in our arms, we're going with Bolstering Detonation. So this grants class ability when we cause damage with our grenades, allowing us to throw down our rifts more often. And then we're also getting class ability when we do damage with our melees. So once again, just being able to get restoration procced super easy by having our class ability being able to refund a few different ways, especially with these mods right here. And then on top of that, we're doing Enduring Wells, so the lifespan of our Solar Elemental Wells that we will be creating, which there will be a lot of them. They'll last a little bit longer, so we can pick them up and refill all of our energies up pretty quickly for our abilities. Next, right here with our chest piece, I'm going to go with Fusion Rifle and Linear Fusion Rifle reserves, so we can hold more ammo inside of our Riptide and our Cataclysmic, and then our Cartesian coordinate if we're switching it up using that with Outbreak Perfected. Again, we're going to be using Bountiful Wells this time though for our other Elemental Well mod, so we can stack multiple of those Elemental Armaments, so we can be able to produce a plethora of Solar Elemental Wells for us. On our boots right here, we're going to go with Linear Fusion Scavenger for that Cataclysmic, and then Fusion Rifle Holster. Not that we really need this one on, because we'll be dodging a lot with these boots to get that automatic reload, but having that fusion in our holster with Riptide will reload it if we're focused on doing defeats with our Vex Mythoclast. And then like I said before, when we pick up those Solar Elemental Wells, it grants regeneration in our health for a short period of time, and we're going to be producing a lot of Solar Elemental Wells. So on top of that, we have our exotic armor perk for the Rain of Fire here. So Airborne dodges reloads all of our weapons and improves airborne effectiveness of fusion rifles and linear fusion rifles. Final blows with these weapons make you radiant. So this doesn't matter if it's our Riptide, our Vex, or our Cataclysmic. If we get defeats with any of those weapons, we will get radiant because they are fusions or linear fusions. It is absolutely crazy how we can get that to proc so easily. This also provides a moderate benefit to airborne effectiveness. Like I said, for fusions and linear fusions, they just kind of state that again. But this is super crazy just because of how easy we are able to get radiant to proc with those weapon defeats. Then on top of that, we have the ability via Ember of Epicurean and our Vex or Solar weapons to keep this radiant procced at all times if we keep getting defeats with those Solar weapons. Now, last but not least, for our armor mods right here, we're going to have Classy Restoration. So every time we throw down our Rift, which we're getting back super fast via those ways I described before, we're going to get that Restoration ×2, which makes Guardians very hard to defeat inside of the PvE realm. And this is where we're stacking our other elemental armaments with Bountiful Wells, and then right here on our headpiece. So we are able to create a bunch of those Solar Elemental Wells via our Solar weapons. So you can see in the gameplay, we are just absolutely wiping out this lost sector. I know it's an easy lost sector, but the amount that we are able to keep our restoration, keep our Radiant procced just with the defeats of our solar weapons, and then being able to dodge and refill all 3 of our weapons, not just the one that we have equipped, definitely makes these boots super interesting for me. Very specific with having to use fusion rifles, so endgame might not be as viable unless we have something for mods in a season that apply to fusion rifles for stunning champions, etc. But for fun and taking it into just some normal arenas without champions as much, super fun build, very effective in the solar game, keeping you alive with that restoration and radiant. And then, like I did say, with that adaptive munitions on our cataclysmic, we are able to break any sort of shield based on that perk, so it is a very viable gun for endgame activity. It just might be dealing with champions in general with this build that you might have to tweak it a little bit, but definitely having that Vex Mythoclast and a fusion rifle in our Kinetic with Riptide is absolutely so much fun and broken for creating radiant and keeping that radiant on you at all times. So hopefully y'all enjoyed this build. They have been popping off lately. You guys seem to like them, so I've been trying to crank out as many as I can. So thank you guys again for that support and everything on the channel. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.